drying down nicely. It's not in any danger. Much better this year than any other year. We're on year 3, so we've definitely knocked off a lot of the issues that were kind of facing us the first 3 years.
Yeah.
First 2 years. So yeah, the first couple of years it was all about building the systems, getting to the point where we are now, and now we have this. This is the old Century barn, which we dry the hemp in, but we have a beautiful dry barn, like a 5,000 square feet, 16 feet to the eaves, plenty of headroom. I can bring in fresh product, and the temperature and humidity don't spike at all. So it's going to be a much better cure this year. The field looks great, so I'm hoping this year is the best yet.
You can only go up, right? I mean, every harvest, it's like that trial and error. You're going to get better every time. Figure out what went wrong the last time to make it better this time.
Absolutely.
Better yield. So
better yield and better, learning this microclimate, learning the soil, learning the. Every year we've had a different year too. Last year was a huge drought year, 7 inches of rain, so that was really rough. Water is always an issue out here in California, but especially in Two Rock in general. So we're actually doing well this year. I'm pretty excited. Next year will be even better.
When it comes to the water usage, everybody knows we're in a drought. How do you guys work around that? Do they like literally put a restriction on how much you're allowed to use?
So in Sonoma County, cannabis is not allowed to truck in any water. So you're stuck with whatever water has been approved on your land for growing cannabis.
Okay.
And we have a well that's approved. It produces about 4,100 gallons per day.
Wow.
And then we have storage as well. So overall, for the entire season, for the cannabis field that we have, which is 28,560 square feet. So it's not a ton of acreage, but over the rows and the pathways and all that, that's really an acre. So that's kind of how you would consider any other crop, like a grape or almond. You call it by acre, and you would say how many gallons, or on something that's a heavier user like acre feet, you would use per acre. So we used about 328,000 gallons of water this year for the 1 acre, which is actually 28,000 square feet of canopy.
Okay.
So that turned out to be almost double what you would use for an acre of grapes.
Okay.
So when people talk about how thirsty cannabis is, yes, it uses twice the amount of water per acre of grapes. But off of this 1 acre, we're producing almost 1 million joints.
Wow.
To get 1 million effective doses of wine, which I consider to be 2 glasses, half a bottle, you would need 70 or 80 acres.
Oh, wow.
So when you look at water usage, it's not even close. You're producing everybody's favorite drug around here is wine. So, cannabis is the latest legal intoxicant. And the way I look at it, it's sipping water comparatively to wine. I love my wine too. I don't want that to go away. But the myth about cannabis using too much water is just untrue. It's just leftover hatred from the Prohibition era.
Yeah, always. I think we're going to be fighting that for a little while. It's going to take a while. Like I was saying earlier, we need more guys like yourself educating, out there doing that. And that's why I wanted to do this, because, I think a lot of people don't have access to that, and they just get what's published on the internet, and that's not always the best info, the best place to get your info.
Not always accurate.
So.
Yeah, I think that there's always going to be a place for indoor. Indoor is something near and dear to me. I grew indoor for 20 years. When I do smoke cannabis now, though, it's usually outdoor organic cannabis, because the feeling is different.
Yeah.
And truthfully, it's more about the way my body feels as, the drug comes out of your system. I believe in eating well. I eat organic, and you're putting this product into your body too, so you should be careful about what you ingest.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. So indoor's not going anywhere. We need it. We need that 5 crops a year. We need that turn to feed, what all of America eventually is going to be using. But there's only a few places you can grow great cannabis outdoors, and this is one of them. And it kind of tracks where you can grow great wine. You want it to be temperate, you want it to have a good amount of sun, and you want it to be dry during the finish season. So very similar to what grows great wine is also what grows great cannabis. wine, grapes are often planted where there's a little more clay or a little more minerality, which doesn't affect cannabis as much because it's annual, so the roots aren't as deep. But, the terroir does affect cannabis too, and we're finally growing cannabis in places that are amazing farmland. Before we grew it where we could hide it up in the hills or in a valley under a redwood tree, whatever it might be. Now we're growing it on great farmland, and we're really lucky to be on this piece of land because this land was actually, after the General Vallejo land grant, one of the first farms to be established. And when you could see as far as the eye can see and nothing's there, and you chose to farm here, there's a reason why. It's great soil. It's a broken down limestone cap. It's called the Gold Ridge, according to Luther Burbank, who is a famous plant breeder up in Santa Rosa. He brought us the Santa Rosa, the Santa Rosa plum. He brought us multiple species, but he talked about how the soil in Sebastopol, he called it the Gold Ridge soil, is some of the best soil in the world, and I've experienced that too. I've grown in a few different places, and the soil out here is amazing. Water is our kind of Achilles heel, and we do everything we can to conserve that. Building up organic matter in the soil, cover cropping, drip taping, everything we can do to conserve the water as much as possible, but 340,000 gallons for the year is really not much when you're talking about water. The cattle operation across the road, I was just
going to bring that up.
800 head to up to 1,300 head sometimes. He probably uses 50 million gallons a year. So
all for beef?
Well, it's for dairy production.
Oh, okay.
So even for beef, it would probably be around 35 million. Each cow during the summer probably drinks 35 to 45 gallons of water per day.
Wow.
And then you have the post-operation of milking and cleaning and all that happens with a dairy operation. So when you're talking about big ag, 340,000 gallons when you're sitting at your house going, well, I only use 7,000 gallons a year.
Yeah.
Well, this is a different thing. Big ag is a huge user of water, and the way we use is sipping it. There's a lot of places that have an excess of water that would use probably double that just because they could. We're out there turning knobs and watching our meters every single day, trying to make it through the year with our water. So
and I feel like with cannabis, anyways, you're already under a microscope, so you really have to mind all that.
We meter the wellhead. We meter what goes into the grow every single day. I have devices that meter how much water has been used out of my storage every day.
Wow!
It is something that we are absolutely on top of, and we report to the county on a monthly and a yearly basis. So there's no secrets. There's no getting around it. If we bring in, like last year, we were under construction, and for construction dust, they brought in water to spray down the roads as they're
keep the dust
destroying
down.
Everything. We had neighbors who called and complained that we were trucking in water for cannabis. So we were faced with that under our review this year. We were faced with accusations that we're trucking in 50,000 gallons of water a day.
Oh, wow.
Which is what the rumor was, which is just like, that would be 15 truckloads a day.
That's a lot. That's a lot of water.
That'd be a train of trucks coming in and out of here.
Non-stop.
So, for sure. That was the only time we trucked water in is during construction. It was permitted and everything. And other than that, we're just making what we can out of the well that we have and what's producing, which has actually gone way down since the drought. The first year that we started growing out here, I got about 30% more water per day, because we had just come off of 3 great years of water.
Yeah.
And out here, the water is stored in the limestone cap, kind of like a sponge.
Okay.
And so it seeps. There's not some magic crack or a reservoir underneath us. It kind of is just stored in the porous limestone, and it seeps. Well, if that's not recharged with 20 to 30 inches of water in the wet, cool season, then we're going to have a reduced amount of water coming out of it.
Wow. So in that's kind of goes into like the dry farming. That's how that works? Is it just seeps through? Okay.
So dry farming, it can be done a couple different ways. Sometimes it's usually done with alluvial plains, sandy loam, or river bottoms. Okay. So river bottoms are a different thing. You might have a water table that's very close to the surface, and the roots can go down and get it. Where we are is sandy loam. And so it's a technique where you basically store the water in the ground from the cool rainy season.
Okay.
And it's a technique of cover cropping and putting it in at the right time, letting it break down. And then that water is available underneath the ground. And actually, at the hottest part of the day is when it pumps up and is drawn up to the surface the most. So 3 in the afternoon is when the plants are drinking the most.
Wow. Okay.
And I have 3 years under my belt. Like 5 years ago, I learned about dry farming down in Oaxaca.
Okay.
I picked up some chili de agua seeds, and they were explaining to me how they grew these peppers without watering once. And I was like, well, this doesn't make any sense because Oaxaca is like here, cool nights, but then you have no rain for the entire dry season.
Yeah.
So we're semi-arid, just like here. We don't rain from April to usually October, although we got 1/3 of an inch the other day, which is very, very unusual so early in the season. So we for the last 3 years, I've been kind of building my knowledge and learning from the neighbor who's 86 years old, who learned from his daddy, who learned from his daddy. So 150 years of farming knowledge of how to dry farm. And I was able to follow his instructions to a T this year instead of just kind of guessing. And we were able to get a huge set of not only dry farm polenta corn, but we have several acres of dry farm potatoes out there in a field that was prepped correctly. I grew dry farm tomatoes this year, which were amazing. Like not one drop on any of these, and it's all about spacing them out so their roots aren't stealing water from each other.
Okay.
So a couple things about dry farming: you're going to get about 40% yield because you just aren't pushing the plants with water. You're also going to have to rotate that crop out of the field at least in a 3-year cycle.
Okay.
So you don't want to grow the same crop ever, usually in the same ground. If you're farming, you want to rotate your crop, which we don't do with cannabis due to the laws currently.
Right.
But the dry farming, you're going to get 40% yield on the year you grow, and then you have 3 years to recover. So really, you get about 15% the yield overall per acre as growing conventionally.
Wow.
But the flavor is ridiculous. It's so concentrated. And to me, nutrition is flavor. When you put it in your mouth, it tastes better. It's because it's better for you.
Yeah.
And the flavor on these tomatoes, potatoes, corn is outrageous. It's not something you can buy in the store, and it's just, I mean, as someone who, kind of has been a food guy my whole life, and I work with chefs, and when they put it in their mouth, they have a finely honed palate that they use, that they worked hard for. I mean, palates you're born with, you work years for it. They're like, wow, the flavor, and it blows my mind. So I'm hoping dry farming can be something that, as we're going into more climate change and drier seasons, and we're really in a huge drought in the West, and who knows when that's going to end. I'm hoping dry farming could kind of gain some.
I think it can. I think a lot of people don't know about it. I just found out about it like, I would say about 6 months ago from another brand that we brought into Doobie. And I was like, it just blew my mind. I'm like, there's no way that you could grow this with no water.
Yeah.
How do you do that? So I appreciate you explaining that because no one really did that. So.
Yeah, I think there's, up in the Eel River, there's a huge alluvial plain where there's up to 20 feet of sandy loam, which is amazing. And so they flood. You can't even drive out to that area in the winter. They flood, and it's completely wet during the winter. They'll cover crop it, and then as soon as they get their equipment out there, they can drop it down on the ground and kind of create a organic matter to break down, and then they space it up enough so they aren't fighting for resources. And truthfully, the cannabis is really, really nice, and it doesn't. Here's the thing about dry farmed product: it doesn't have the same look as irrigated crops. It might look a little different, but it's higher in terpenes and phenols as a cannabis, and just as high in THC. THC is really dependent on genetics. But the beautiful thing is, it's just very resource, not resource intensive at all. And that's the wonderful thing. Like the acrobatics I have to do to get the most amount of yield per square foot in the current system that we have, where we're our permits are a certain square footage. Like I have 28,560 square feet of permitted space. So I have to squeeze every ounce out of that space that I can in this toughening economic situation for cannabis, and so that's resource intensive. I have to after I cut my crop down, I chop and drop it, bring the sheep in, they eat the chippings, and then we bring in a lot of compost and worm castings and oyster shell and all these amendments, lime and all these amendments, and then we put a cover crop in, grow that up, drop that down. That creates a like a cover crop. I mean, like a organic material as well. So we're building the soil back up every year because we're taking about 20,000 wet pounds out of that acre of cannabis. And so when you take that much product out of a field, you have to put something back.
Replenish.
Yeah, you have to replenish. And so it's a lot of labor, a lot of work, where if I could rotate my crops and not grow on the same land every year, the pest pressure doesn't build up as quickly, the nutrient deficiency doesn't build up as quickly. I could cover crop for 2-3 years in a row, let that land heal, and probably have about 1/3 of the inputs to grow the same amount.
So what's the reason for them not allowing you to do that?
Well, I think part of it is they just really had to control it during a time when there was so much money involved. They didn't want people to take advantage of the eased up laws, out of prohibition, and just go crazy and make a ton of black market money. At this point in time, I mean, the industry is changing just as fast as the laws can be implemented. So as soon as they change something, it's almost like, oh, well, now we need to change the law again. The recent, one of the things in Prop 64 was there was a cap of 1 acre on growing, and that was to allow people to kind of get a foothold in the business in California without large amounts of outside money coming in and taking over the entire industry.
Right.
After prohibition in alcohol, I think there was 1,100 breweries, mid to large size throughout the U.S. And then everybody knows what happened with that. We went down to the big three. Yeah. Coors and Michelob and Budweiser. Yeah. And now we have more breweries again. But that was really a result of regulations that allowed that expansion again. So we don't really want to see that in cannabis because, I do drink Coors every now and then, but that's not the beer I want to drink all the time. So I would like to see the variety and the genetics and the small farms that are really truly putting out quality to stay alive. I don't want to see an extinction event and then have to realize that we have to get back to where we are today or where we were a couple of years ago. Yeah,
I think it's got to be more like the wine industry out here where, you have all these small wineries. And I think as a cannabis community, everybody needs to pull together, like the farms like you guys that are out here, to keep it that way, to not allow for that big business to come in, because it wants to. I know they've already been buying up land. I've heard rumors and all kinds of stuff. Not necessarily Sonoma County, but up north more. And, so I think Sonoma County is perfect for like what you're talking about, because people here more than other places I visited really do care about that locally grown and all that stuff. So it is really cool, to see what you guys are doing. And I think with the crop rotation thing, I think it's just another one of those like educational things. Because especially as we pull more resources and all that, and we're not getting the replenishment with the rain and all the things that you were talking about, I think now it's even more important to like teach why that makes the most sense, and then maybe you guys could be the first ones to get that rule changed or something.
And DCC is working hard to preserve what's left of this industry. They really are. We had Nicole Elliott and the entire team out here on the farm last week, and they listened to some of the things that we had to say. They were really here on a fact-finding mission to say, what have we done wrong? How can we help the small farms survive? And one big part of that was the repeal of the cannabis cultivation tax. That was a huge boon to all cultivators because at $156 a pound, there was no profit left for the farmer. So I think that we could, with that tax though, we could fix some of the problems that we did when we got rid of the 1 acre cap under Prop 64 that was written into Prop 64 and would have protected small farms. It was gotten rid of, so we have these large mega farms, 40 acres of raised beds down in Santa Barbara that I know of, another 5 million square feet that we've all heard about. So these are going to kind of swamp the industry with cheaper product, and when corporations are making decisions, they aren't making decisions based on quality often.
Yeah.
So we do want to have that large amount of Coors Light and Michelob, but we also want to be able to choose if something special if we want.
Yeah.
And I think that under that cannabis tax, we could probably fix some of those mistakes with a progressive tax. So right now we've repealed it for everybody. What if we also kind of take a look at, we used to grow for plant count. We had plant count, right? And you could grow 25 or 99 or 200, whatever it was. And now we're to square footage. Well, square footage, there's the issues that I talked about with that.
Yeah.
What if we had different licenses would be capped at a certain amount of poundage produced? And that way we could grow these crops in a different manner. We could grow it this less labor intensive. When you're growing broccoli, you grow a whole field. You chop the tops, and if there's a bad plant, you aren't worried about it.
Yeah.
You take the tops and you till the rest in, returning it to the soil. What if we could grow cannabis in that way, where we'd have enough spacing so there's not as much airflow issues and molds? And then you go through, and if there's a stick that's bud rot, that gets left in the field and tilled back in. You just take what's good, and you aren't out there picking berries for fresh frozen. You could produce the amount that you're licensed for, like maybe micro would be up to 1,000 pounds, 1,000 to 5,000, and then 5,000 to 10,000 would be the larger, operations. And then we could have a progressive tax, maybe nothing up to 1,000, $25 per pound for, and then a progressive tax as you get larger up to 75, because economy of scale really does save you money.
Yeah.
And these larger companies should be paying more into it. And that could fix that disparity that we have right now. So I do believe there are things that we could do to kind of fix the industry and save the small farmer.
Yeah.
But we all have to, be vocal about it and keep on thinking of out-of-the-box solutions.
Yeah. It's nice to hear that the DCC is out listening to the farmers, because, all we hear, at the store level is just they're the ones that make all the rules, and you don't want them to show up, basically. You know what I mean? Like, and so it's nice to hear that they are out here actively listening, getting as much information as they can to benefit the industry.
I think we came from a period of enforcement and prohibition, and then many of the people who were first overseeing the rules used to be in the other side of the game, where they were busting heads and ripping
kicking doors down
and tearing plants up. So I think it was a period of time where we had to transition out of that. Now they realize, like, oh, we've created all these departments. We have nice jobs, state jobs, and pensions.
Yeah.
If everybody goes out of business, we won't have those anymore. So, hopefully that's. Hopefully it's out of the goodness of their heart too, is to try to continue on with the business. But there's a lot of myths from prohibition and fear on both sides.
Yeah.
I think that we need to kind of come together, and DCC is doing a great job of going around right now and asking what they can do better, because I think that they probably were hit pretty hard this year when they did inspections up in Humboldt, and apparently there was some armed inspectors along with the water inspectors, and that was really traumatic for some of the farmers, because it brought them back to the camp days.
Yeah.
And we all heard about that situation, and I don't know if it was intentional by DCC. I don't think it was, but there was a big backlash from that. So I think at this point in time, they're starting to realize, there's some traumatic memories, and they are here to work with us, I believe, but government moves slow.
Yeah.
So
that's why when the laws get passed, it's already time for a new one.
Yeah, exactly.
It isn't a quick process. So.
Exactly.
Before we came out here, I was doing some research, just kind of reading up on Sonoma Hills and yourself mainly, because you popped up like immediately on the page. So how do you go from French Laundry, gourmet chef to here? How does that happen?
So my secret is I've always been in cannabis.
Okay.
So I grew my first plant when I was 15. I partially paid for culinary school with growing out in upstate New York.
Nice.
And, I worked 40 hours a week while I went to college, got paid for everything myself, and had loans that I paid off. And after I graduated from culinary school, I was just a cook for a while and worked my way up, and that's an incredibly intensive job, so 70 hours a week, and worked my way up to become a chef and executive chef, and And then, I had a couple kids. I was living in the Bay Area, and it's an incredibly expensive place to live.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then Prop 215 came along. And I said, well, I used to do that. I think I could probably do that. And it was early enough.
Mm-hmm.
And so under Prop 215, I, started growing cannabis. And at the same time, I was an executive chef. I did that on the side and, really kind of fell in love with the plant again and fell in love with that plant in particular. But then after, kind of doing that, said, okay, this is going to be legal. Nothing else is grown inside. I mean, I had it down. I had all my knobs turned. And, you do your flips and never a dark day, and you make your money, and it's cool. But as a chef too, I was also under the understanding that the best product comes from under the sun in living soil. When you're tasting it. So even putting a hoop over a lettuce changes the texture and the flavor. So I was like, okay, well, the best products come from the living soil under the sun, which I hadn't had a whole lot of great outdoor cannabis. Maybe I just never had access to the up north, the products that they were making. So I said, well, I'm going to learn how to become a farmer, and I was able to transition, luckily, through the Prop 215 days, and I dealt with mostly the clubs down in the city, into becoming a farmer, and I traveled around the country and went to different farms I admired, read a lot of books, and just started doing it. And it took me a few years before I even knew what I was doing at all, understanding the seasons, understanding what life in the soil is. I mean, the knowledge that I built up over the years of doing it, 50, 60 hours a week. I mean, it's like second nature to me now, but at the time it was a huge leap of faith. And I wanted to learn how to grow great cannabis and get ready for the time when it's going to be legal, because I could see that coming. But I didn't know that from falling in love with one plant, I was going to fall in love with all plants.
All of it, yeah.
And so after traveling around and visiting different, farms, I started a stage at French Laundry. And a stage is a fancy French word for working for free. It's an externship or whatever you want to call it. So I worked for free, and within 3 weeks, they were like, I had work ethic from, the days in the kitchen. You got to grind. And so they're like, oh, you want a job? And it took me a little bit to say yes, because I kind of liked my life at the time. And so then I said yes, and I worked there for a year full time, and then I went back down to part time. And then when the farmer who was there at the time, Tucker Taylor, who I learned a lot from, decided to move on, they called me up and asked me to take over the program. So I did the landscaping there and the farming there for about a decade. And truthfully, it was an educational opportunity I can't replace, because I grew 1,000 plus different varieties of plants, learned about the seasons, learned about where flavor comes from. I'd honed my palate as a chef for years, tasting and cooking and knowing what's better.
Right.
But then I could understand how it got to be better by growing it. Oh, why is this celeriac pithy? Oh, because you didn't have a consistent water every day. Or there was a heat spike during, or at the harvest time, and, little things. And it was the same time I was educating myself with cannabis indoors. Say an AC went out, toward the end of harvest, and your room spiked to 90 degrees. Oh, well, there goes your terpenes. So all these little things you put together, and it's like the biggest game. Farming is like the biggest game of concentration you ever played. You're flipping over a card, you might not see it for 3 years again, and then you're like, aha, that one, okay, now I have to do this to fix this. So really that was I had a great partner with my 215 operation, so I was able to also work full-time at the same time. And I had a great partner with my with now ex-wife, who was there with the kids and really did a great job raising them. So I was able to kind of juggle all these things and have a full-time job at the French Laundry, plus learn more about cannabis. So that was kind of my background to this. And I know a lot of people probably think, oh, well, you just jumped, or you're jumping on the bandwagon now that it's legal, and that's just not true. I have paid my pound of flesh. I have been arrested multiple times for cannabis. One time was a serious one, where they kicked down, they ripped up all the scripts and did all the stuff and emptied the bank accounts and did everything.
Take it all.
And they took. I mean, it was really traumatic, and so I've been on the other side of it too, and I've paid my dues on that. So it's not like I'm brand new to the industry. I've been in it a long time.
I think that's why the quality is so much better, because you've put in that work. You're not in it just for the money. It is truly like a love for the plant itself. It's why most people, I think, stick to cooking. It's because you're not going to get rich most of the time being a chef, and I went to culinary school and I focused on baking and pastry, and I went out and I was a pastry chef, but like you said, you got to put in some hours, and and you're not making a lot. So it really is about the joy of watching somebody eat what you made, and seeing the look on their face, and like hearing that feedback and all that. That's what makes it all worth it, really. So
grinding and getting better.
And you can tell the brands. I hate to say it, I'm not going to call any of them out, but you can tell the ones that really love it or they're in it for the money.
Yeah.
I mean, I had the opportunity to eat at the French Laundry, and it was amazing. So I didn't know that they grew everything like that out there.
Yeah.
Because you don't see any of that when you walk up there.
Well, on the other side of the street is that manicured garden. It's about 3 acres.
I didn't know that was there.
So that was the garden. That was the main pretty garden that had to look perfect all the time, like all the other grounds. And so I did all the landscaping there too. I had a great crew, throughout the years, and really, I mean, I have a great crew here now too, and that's what it is about. Is nobody does anything themselves. At this point in time, I'm running around talking to the people who are doing the work. And steering it the best I can, but nobody does anything themselves.
Yeah.
I can work 70 hours a week and still not get anything done, like we can when we work with team members. But it takes a while to build the team, and we're year 3 over here now, and we have an amazing team. People who are in it for different reasons than just the love of the plant have gone away, because the love of the plant is all we have this year. It's not money.
Yeah.
It's just, we want to grow the best cannabis. We want to grow the cannabis we want to smoke.
Yeah.
And when I was cooking, I wanted to cook the food I wanted to eat. And when I was growing vegetables, I want to grow the vegetables I want to eat. And the same now, I want to grow the cannabis I want to smoke. And, we're trying to produce the best we can, and hope that the education of the consumer catches up to it. We were client number 001 for CCOF. We're organic certified here with our cannabis. It's something we really believe in, and something that there's no monetary upside to right now.
Yeah.
But when you go into the store at Whole Foods, you're paying more for organic.
Yeah.
And I think that's an educational thing for our customers that, hey, it costs a lot more to do it this way. It's probably going to, at some point in time, have to cost more on the shelf too, because right now, not everybody, but a lot of people are just growing for fun, or because they love it, because, you might be even losing money growing. So hopefully we get to the point where that kind of flushes out, and, everybody can make a living again, because that's one thing that I truly loved about cannabis before the government got involved with it, was there was a living wage for everybody, all the way down to the trimmers.
Yeah. It is about the education and doing things like this, and then passing that knowledge on to us at the store level, so we can pass it on to the customer. Because just like going into a liquor store, I could go into a liquor store and buy the cheapest bottle of alcohol and get drunk, but is it really that good? And
how do you feel after?
Exactly.
How's your hangover?
Yeah. So being able to retrain the customers, because there is a few that are knowledgeable. I'm starting to see a lot more customers come in, and you can tell they're doing their research, and they're learning about terpenes, and they're learning about all those things, and they're understanding that it's not all about the highest THC necessarily. But then you still have those customers that come in, and if it's not 30% higher or higher, then they don't want it. So.
I mean, and I think it's youth and education, and when you're young, you don't feel the bad effects. Like, you're out there doing shots of Fireball all night, and you get up and you're fine. Yeah. Well, when you're my age, I want to have some laws, bonded 6-year rye. Yeah. I can't do a couple shots of without having a Fireball without having a huge hangover. Yeah. So I think that's both education and tuning into your body and understanding how it makes you feel. So I think that there will come a point where people will be educated, but we're just coming out of prohibition, and truthfully,
it takes a minute.
When I was a kid, jug wine was kind of a thing among the parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now everybody has some modicum of knowledge about wine, right? Now you can say Cabernet Sauvignon and Sauvignon Blanc and Pinot, and nobody's going to laugh at you.
Yeah.
Before it was reds and whites.
Yeah.
So
either the jug or the box.
Yeah, jug or the box. Yeah. Or I don't even know if there was boxes back then.
Yeah.
It was so. I'm hoping that as we educate them, my job is to try to grow the cannabis that I know how to grow. Try to grow better cannabis. You're the translator. You're almost like the restaurant. You're the chef. And I look at chefs as translators for the general public of trying to educate people what's better. You're the consumer facing business, and I think the education, you're the one who rubs with the consumer, so I think the education comes there.
Yeah, for sure, because people are creatures of habit, you know, and so they get stuck on one thing and they just buy that same thing over and over again. So it is nice to have that opportunity, the bud tenders out there on the floor I feel like they light up when a customer starts asking questions, because it's like, okay, now I get to talk about all this stuff, all the things that I've heard and learned and got all this training on, and it's easy to talk about things when you see somebody else really cares too,
And I think the future of consumption lounges will be a good opportunity, because right now it's like almost like you're going to a liquor store and buying, and if you ask questions, you're going to get some information, but a lot of people just go in and be like, all right, Jack Daniels is what I like. And, whereas when you have that social rub where you go in and maybe have a consumption lounge where you're able to talk to somebody and be like, okay, well, I had this dab last time. I liked that effect, or I didn't like that effect. Maybe you could recommend something for me this time, or I really like this one taste. I like the fruitiness, but I prefer more up high than the down, and then you can have that conversation and then consume. And then even give feedback, and that's similar to what people do when they're at the bar or wine tasting.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like having a sommelier or something like that can teach you why you have these certain notes and all that would be a great idea.
And to talk about Huckleberry Farm has this great, whitethorn rose, and this, talk about why, and then say, Moon Maid is up at 3,000 feet elevation, so you'll notice that the same strain that's being grown by her is this. The difference is this. Yeah, the bud structure is different, and so it'd be neat, because sommeliers can talk about that. Oh, it was grown on this bank of the Loire, which gets more sun than this one, and you have more coastal influence on this vineyard. So I think that if we can get to that point, we will be in a different place.
That would be cool. Do you guys have you guys thought about doing that, like as a Sonoma Hills Farms doing something like that?
Absolutely, and we're really waiting on in some way. We're waiting on the rules and the laws to catch up to what we want to do. Santa Cruz just passed a wonderful law that changed cannabis into a farm product, which allows farms to do farm tastings and sales on site.
Oh,
and
okay.
That's what saved small wineries here in Napa Valley and Sonoma. Is at one point in time, the Byzantinian prohibition laws, you couldn't direct sale your wine to anybody. You couldn't even do a wine tasting. So if you notice, when you do a wine tasting, there's still like an educational part to it.
Yeah.
And so they made it so, yes, you have to do an educational part to a wine tasting on top of the wine tasting, and then there's even limits. Like Wyoming has a limit of, I think, 48 ounces of beer that can be sold at a brewery. For direct sales, there's still limits surrounding the old laws of prohibition. So hopefully we'll get to the point where we can, and what we're hoping to build here is a, cannabis winery or a marijuana winery, even though that word is a little controversial now.
Yeah.
Truly, we're looking to build a place where you can come see where your cannabis is grown. You can come see that it's grown in living soil under the sun on a biodiverse farm, where you can taste it here. You can understand the sense of place here. And if you fall in love with us, maybe we could sign you up for a membership, and we can do some modicum of direct sales. I think even Successful Winery has like 16% direct sales. So it's not going to take away from the clubs or anything else, but it's going to allow a little more communication between the consumer and the farm. And, we hope to do events out here. We hope to do cannabis tastings. We hope to do dinners where we can sit down and do a cannabis pairing. everybody's pairing cannabis with edible, edible cannabis now.
Yeah.
For me, I don't like that because I'm high as can be, but 2 hours later.
Yeah.
So I'd rather smoke multiple times during the course meal, which is what we kind of have pioneered. So you sit down and you might have a gougier with a little bit of like 2 milligrams of an edible in it, and that gets going a little bit. And then you might move on to first course. You do a pipe or a one hitter of something that's more like an aperitif, something that gets you up.
Yeah.
You move on through the courses. Later on for the entree, everybody gets this beautiful these glasses of wine. Well, we do it so you get the bong, this pre-pack, dropped in front of everybody. Nobody's sharing. Everybody gets their own bong.
Yeah.
And it's pre-packed with like 3 milligram hit, so it's a tiny hit. And just like a wine tasting, if you're ahead and you need more, you'd be like, hey, can you hit me again? And they'll pack it again, just like somebody who drinks a lot would ask for more wine tasting.
Yeah.
And then that kind of steers the high throughout the meal. And then at the end, you pass joints of different varieties around, and people can retire just like with a cigar. And
I love the sound of that.
It's kind of like
sign me up. I'll be out here for that.
It's kind of like a coursed meal with coursed cannabis, and it's something we really believe can be the future. I think cannabis is the third arm of hospitality. We had food and we had wine, and now we have a latest legal intoxicant, which is cannabis. And in these days of Cali sober, and the days where alcohol is being used less and less for many varied reasons, but I hope there comes a day where we have a lot of consumption lounges, just like bars. We have course dinners. When you sit down, what are you asked? The very first thing you're asked when you sit down to eat.
What do you want to drink?
What do you want to drink?
Yeah.
And you're given a drink list.
Yeah.
Wine, beer. You have a lot of choices there. What if you could sit down and say, what would you like to drink or smoke? And you get a consumption, menu. And truthfully, some people don't want to drink, and a lot of people have stopped drinking.
I'm seeing that a lot, hearing that a lot more lately.
So, I mean, if you wanted to, do a smokeless or a dab, or maybe there's like a cigar room or something, that's kind of outrageous to think about now, but it's a possibility.
I think it's the future, honestly, and I think
so.
With the way the wine industry is out here, and people come from all over the world to come to where we live, and that would just add that much more to it. So I think the revenue that could be generated for just the county and as a whole would be huge.
Sonoma County is a special place because we are urban in some areas, but we also have so many beautiful farms and areas that they grow great products. I mean, a lot of the restaurants in San Francisco and Oakland get the products from here.
Yeah.
Napa is somewhat of a monoculture of grapes. They have very little production of other products. But Sonoma is kind of where it happens, for all these other edible products. So I can see one day where you fly into San Francisco, you go on a wine trail, you drive up, you stop at Scribe and have a wine tasting. You come here and have a cannabis tasting. You go to eat out at one of our fine restaurants here in Sonoma County, Single Thread or Valley over in Sonoma. And then you drive home, and all of that's within a day, is all within a drive. And I know that Humboldt and Mendocino are really what I would call the Emerald Triangle Trail.
Yeah.
They are the trailblazers and they are the flame keepers, and they did it. But it's pretty far away from, the population center.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I truly believe that they're going to have their own kind of tourism experience that's going to be wonderful. But we have the infrastructure here already for the tastings. We have the hotels. We have the nice restaurants. We have the places to stay and eat and the roads.
Yeah.
So all within a day drive. So I'm hoping that we can, kind of pull ourselves out of that mythology of prohibition where cannabis is bad or it changes your DNA or is it, a drug. Well, caffeine's a drug, alcohol's a drug. There's a lot of drugs out there. This is a pretty innocuous drug.
And also just meeting the people behind it, because I feel like for so many years, like when someone says like, "Oh, I grow weed," or I know somebody that grows weed, what do they picture that person being like?
Yeah,
it's not what I see when I pull up here. You know what I'm saying? Like what I grew up with my parents telling me. I went to church my whole life, so it was like, don't ever smoke weed. Like, it was the worst thing ever. And I honestly didn't until I was out of the Navy by that point, I think the first time. So And just because I was so scared of it, like, man, this could have solved a lot of my issues back in the day,
Yeah, it's a wonderful, peaceful, and it's medicine. It helps you when you need it. There's been times I haven't smoked.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm busy with other things, there's times when I smoke a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a medicine that you sometimes need, and you sometimes need a lot of it. Sometimes only need it here and there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that all the mythology of prohibition was caused by prohibition.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, only criminals do sell marijuana. Well, that's because you made it illegal to sell this plant that's been part of our humanity for thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah.
And you created a false scarcity and a false narrative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the most successful people I know smoke weed. So like that whole mythology about being lazy and not productive. That's so far from the truth.
Yeah, you can become addicted to anything: video games, food, alcohol, marijuana. I mean, there's lots of things. But cannabis is a wonderful boon and a blessing. It's one of our most effective plants. I mean, the amount of stuff that we make from corn in this country. I think cannabis has a huge future in something other than an intoxicant too.
Oh yeah, well hemp does too. I mean, there's so many things that can be made off of hemp, and you can produce it way faster. Don't have to cut down all the lumber and trees and all that stuff. So, I think that has a big future as well.
I mean, I think the numbers are 6 times the amount of biomass per acre for hemp versus growing trees, because of the longevity of growing a tree versus you can flip hemp.
Yeah.
So I think that there could be, hempcrete is a alternative to concrete that is way less energy intensive. So, we haven't even gotten into the energy intensiveness of production and talking about indoor and how much carbon. We're talking about going to electric cars. We're talking about eliminating diesel engines. We're talking about all these things, and indoor cannabis has kind of escaped that conversation so far.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't think it's ever going away, and it shouldn't. And mixed light, like a greenhouse, maybe is the answer to that. But the amount of energy that is used for indoor grows, and I know what it is because I used to pay those electric bills, and that's the energy usage of 50, 60 families.
Oh, easily
for 10,000 square feet. So.
Easily, I had a barn about this size that a friend of mine partnered up on and grew in.
Yeah.
And that PG&E bill, holy crap! I couldn't believe it. That first month when we got that bill, I was like, "Man, do we really want to do this long term?" Because
I mean, it paid back then. But when you think about it, I used to think that it's like 50 families worth of electric this month.
Wow.
And you're like, "Whoa, this." So I mean, I think the numbers for indoor cannabis, one joint is like leaving your light on for 11 days. That's something I've heard.
Wow.
The energy usage is incredible. You're trying to recreate nature in a box, and there's some real heroics, and there is a payoff because you can get 5 flips a year.
Yeah,
you can be assured of your weather, you can be assured of your timing and your harvest and all that. That is nice, but the amount of resources taken to do that is pretty high.
Yeah. So on the way up here, I saw like all the vegetables.
Yeah.
I've heard, and I couldn't find anywhere. You guys that all goes to local restaurants, right?
Yeah. So this year, because of the drought and the water usage, we cut way back on the vegetable production during the summer. We'll be redoing that again this winter. So in the past, we've worked with Single Thread, we've worked with Press over in Napa, we've worked with several different restaurants. And one restaurant that we were working with pretty closely was Tyler Florence's new place down at the Chase Center in San Francisco.
Yeah.
He opened up a place called Miller and Lux, which is a wonderful steakhouse, and it was kind of like a super bougie steakhouse, continental cuisine. Really, he's a showman to begin with, a wonderful chef. And after getting to know him, working with him, he is a chef. He is a good chef. Some chefs are like, oh, he's a TV chef.
No.
He's not a TV chef. He's a good chef.
He knows what he's doing.
He knows what he's doing. And he's got a great crew who has been loyal to him and worked with him a long time, and that says a lot to me. When you have a crew members who've been with you for years, that's huge. So he is a wonderful chef, and he came up with a wonderful idea. He came out here and he was talking to me about a signature dish, and I told him, this land has grown the best lettuce, the best hard herbs, a couple other things. This is really good temperate weather, and that's why when I talk about temperate weather, I mean no real spikes in cold or heat. And that's really great for cannabis because of the terpenes, and some terpenes are volatile as low as 86 degrees. So when you're 110 degrees or 102 degrees during harvest time, the entire harvest, you're losing a lot.
Yeah.
Just like indoors, if your temperature spikes, you're going to lose a lot of terpenes. So when you're up in an area like Lake County, which has zero mold issues because it's so hot and dry, you're losing a little bit of that terpene level up there too. So what we do grow really nicely out here is some lettuces. And so we grew the signature lettuce for his signature Caesar salad for about a year. And he, we would harvest it with the roots on, rinse the roots off, strip it down. It was like a mini head, like a Bambi was the name of the lettuce.
Okay.
So we grow it out. And then, he would bring it down to the restaurant 3 times a week, plant it in a pot, and push it out on the Garradon with all the ingredients and make it fresh to order.
Oh, that's cool.
So it was like a really cool showman dish, and I think they went to a summer salad this summer, and hopefully we can get back to that.
And that's at the Chase Center?
Yeah, it's at the Chase Center. It's I think the Chase Center was a $2 billion build out. That restaurant was like a $12 million build out. It's a gorgeous restaurant.
I'll be visiting the Chase Center on the 1st, so might have to check that out.
You have a concert to go to?
Yeah. Kevin Hart. Actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, he's great, and that's the beautiful thing is he is attached to the Chase Center. So every time there's a big show or every time there's a good Warriors season, which happened this year, there's just this huge influx of people coming into the restaurant.
Yeah, and then getting to taste the things that you grew out here on this little area, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's really cool.
The polenta is all going to go to him this year. So he'll polenta on the menu from that dry farm field, and hopefully we can get back into the lettuce production here pretty quick. So,
one of the things I really like about you guys as well is how collaborative you are. Can you talk about like a little bit, like Maison Bloom? I know is one. I've seen several other collaborations.
Maison Bloom, a lot of chemistry products, Rose Delights. We're talking to several different drink companies who want to go organic. What we're looking to do, the Garcia brands carried us, Sun+Earth brands carried us. In the past we were all siloed, and this is, as a guy who came from the restaurant world, I loved the collaboration. I loved the social rub and everything that happened, as you cooked and you cooked together and you got to know other chefs and went to parties together. I loved that. It was like really social and it was wonderful. Growing cannabis was tough in the past because you were siloed. Loose lips sink ships.
Yep.
So you're all in your little group. You might have a couple people you trust, but you tried to just keep it tight so you didn't get busted.
Yeah.
And that led to, like, I guess pirate ships, little fiefdoms, where everybody was the king of their own little fiefdom.
Yeah.
And coming out of Prohibition, we've had a little bit of that where there's jealousy and people are. You can see the sniping on social media.
Yeah.
That's just silly. We have to all work together as an industry to get up to the respect that we deserve, because this is a consumer product that is absolutely connoisseur quality. This is something like wine, beer, liquor, tobacco that there's levels to it. So we need to all collab and become a cohesive industry so we can base our awards on what is better rather than clicks or whatever it has, and we're getting there. We're starting to do events and we're starting to get together and we're starting to do collabs, but this is what I think is the future, and there's enough for everybody at this table, so let's just all work together and learn from each other. But
that's why I brought it up, because I in that same boat with you, where I feel like there's way more than enough to go around, and we can only be better as a community if we pull together and do some of these things. Like your guys' events are amazing. I've been out here for one, and I'll be out next month after Hall of Flowers. And it's cool because it brings when I was out here last time, there was all these different dispensaries represented that I probably never would have talked to, but it was really cool to, like, you know, get to meet them and chat with them and know that they're not just the competition, you know.
You know, every restaurant competes with each other, every winery competes with each other, but you know, we can all be cool because we're all in this for the same thing. We love this plant, we love the product. You know, for us, we love hospitality. Yeah. And that's what Sonoma Hills Farm is about. It's about cannabis, but it's about cannabis hospitality too. Yeah. And we love to bring people together and have a good time. I mean, why not have a good time doing this?
And that's how you make the industry as good. The best that it can be is by everybody working together. If everybody just does their own thing, it'll just take that much longer to get it to where it needs to be.
Or we're all divided, and then you know, everybody thinks they're a baller. Everybody thinks that they're the wolf. The real wolves are waiting. Yeah. You know, when federal legalization happens, the real sharks come. Yeah. And if we don't band together as keepers of the flame, the people who were in it before, the people who really understand what quality is, well, our lunch is going to be taken. Yeah. You know, by the real sharks who are just waiting to you know, come along and take over. Yeah. So I think that we all should, you know, get to know each other and collab and, you know, lift each other up, because otherwise we'll be divided and picked off one by one. Yeah. So.
I've related it a lot to, like, what happened when, like, Amazon and, like, Walmart came around. It's like there's a lot of small businesses that went away as a result, and that's unfortunately probably what will happen once federal legalization comes along. That you're gonna see a lot of these small farms disappear, and it's unfortunate. You know, I think in this area, maybe Sonoma County, there's still that potential, because you still have those really small wineries out here competing with some of these other big ones, and they're doing okay. But you know, it is unfortunate to see that at some point that might happen.
Yeah, I think the same thing that saved small wineries, direct sales, memberships, and events. Mm-hmm. You know, you're going to have to be good at the whole deal. You know, the days of, you know, growing some fire weed and having the buyer come up to your farm and grabbing it all for you and leaving a pile of cash, that's over. Yeah. I mean, but you're going to have to be good at everything now and really be a true, well-rounded business. And you know, there's some great people who are in this industry, and they've been maybe not used to using their voice because of the position they were in with Prohibition. But at this point in time, I mean, I've met some really great people who have been, you know, part of this industry, and they've been business people. They've been making these connections and these, you know, the supply chains. And I mean, this is a fully fleshed out business, and now we just have to play by a few new rules. But at the same time, we can also kind of make some rules. And my hope is that, you know, the industry voices who truly are connoisseurs and bastions of quality become a bigger voice. And so we don't have the Robert Parker of cannabis yet. So he's a wine reviewer who, you know, he kind of actually dictated what wines were grown at some point in time, because if he gave you a 90 plus on his ratings, all of a sudden your wine was selling off the shelf. So we don't really have that. I mean, we have Jimmy Devine, who's a great connoisseur and a great palate. You know, Berner's a good palate. You know, you have some other people who really, truly understand the plant. But we don't really have a rating system or someone who people look to and say, hey, if he says yes, I'm going to trust it.
Yeah, if their name's on it or whatever. Yeah. It's kind of like a Michelin star for a restaurant.
Exactly.
Real similar.
Okay, if it has a Michelin star, well, that's a great restaurant. Yeah. 2 means it's exceptional. 3, there's 140 of them in the world. Yeah. And then even if it gets a big gourmand, which is not a Michelin star, but it's a recognition, that's a pretty darn good restaurant. So we do need to have that kind of rating system for cannabis farms. And right now, I think a lot of it is... you know, we had the California Cannabis Awards with the State Fair, which we were happy to be part of. But that was a very interesting way of judging, because they took terpene levels, and a singular terpene, whatever was highest, was the winner. Oh. And we all know, like, you know, there's a strain called Pink Boost that's out there that's, I don't know, probably like 14% THC. I love that one. and it's not high in THC, but it makes me feel really good. So there's other things to cannabis than just THC levels or power or the highest level of some terpenes. So I think that, you know, as we get further along, we need to have that voice, and that voice might emerge where they have a palate and they can be trusted, and it's not bought and sold by a company. And so then they can be someone who people look to and say, oh, if he's recommending it, I've liked most of his recommendations. You know, kind of like a restaurant critic or a movie critic. I mean, Roger and
Siskel and Ebert.
They used to watch that. And like,
I did too.
If they recommended it, I'd watch the movie. So
it was funny because I would watch that too, but then it was I always found that like if they liked it, I didn't like it.
So it was at least you had that.
Yeah. So if they were like, oh, thumbs down, I'm like, I know I'm gonna like it now.
Go to see
my type of movie. So that's funny. But it's funny you brought up Burner because like I feel like he could be that guy because of who he is and like his influence and like what he's done and just outside of cannabis. Even like a lot of people would listen to a voice like that.
To his voice. Yeah. But he's so tied into his own brand that you have to, you know, how would he separate himself from the commercial aspect of it?
Exactly.
So it kind of has to be someone who, you know, maybe a collaboration of those guys. Or, you know, I mean, like, you know, Divine and Burner. You know, so
it's almost like we have Emerald Cup judges. We almost need something like that. You know, that is the voice for the whole industry.
And then Emerald Cup is, you know, huge among our industry, right?
Yeah.
But does it move the needle with the consumer?
I don't think so.
It doesn't. Not yet. That's what I've heard from all the brands who won.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're like, yeah, that's great, and it makes me feel good, but it hasn't moved the needle with sales. And so I think that, you know, it's also how do you get the word out? I mean, the media is having even the normal media is having a hard time even talking about cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you know, San Francisco Chronicle has the Green State, you know, which is a feature that comes out every now and then. You know, but they have a Chronicle food section that comes out every week, and there's new reviews every week. Michael Bauer and now Soleil Ho. You know, we should have a pod critic who talks about different strains, or you know, and then once our consumption lounges open up, we can talk about, oh, this place is doing something really, really cool. Your space up in Santa Rosa is unusual for a dispensary. I mean, I've been in this long enough. I remember the dirty carpets and pit bulls at every dispensary. So, you know, go into your place and see this visual art display is super cool.
Yeah, and it's nice too because now, you know, COVID's most of the way gone, or you know, we're behind us, and we're able to start moving forward with a lot of the ideas that we wanted to do. It really did put us on hold, but it also helped us focus too a little bit. So there was some blessing behind it. I am looking forward to going into 2023, actually right after Hall of Flowers, because we're doing some events right after that.
Yeah.
I think it's really going to start, we're going to start seeing a lot more. You know, I want to be like you said, like you have the section for the wines and stuff like that. I want to be, when people look up what's going on in Sonoma County, they're going to go, well, what's Doobie Nights doing this weekend or this month or whatever, you know?
Yeah. And if I'm into cannabis, what is Doobie Nights doing? That's a event that I want to go learn at or participate in. It'll be fun. So.
Yeah, and the education events is another one I really want to focus on because it's fun to have like taco trucks and do all the fun stuff.
Yeah,
but also I think it would be fun to offer, you know, maybe small classes, even kind of like how like Sur La Table does their cooking classes where you could go in, something real similar to that where we could bring somebody like yourself in and explain like to the customers that really want to know what sets you guys apart, because I think they need to know that information, and I think there's a lot of people out there that really want to know it and just don't know where to go to get it.
I think so. I mean, people are hungry for knowledge, and if they're passionate about something, they want to know more about it. And you know, we're just starting to get that information out there with cannabis. But yeah, I hope that we can. I hope we can get to that point. I hope that, you know, that people can accept cannabis as something that's not a drug, not something that causes laziness, flunking out of school, and all the other myths that were there before. A lot of people smoke weed, and a lot of people that you don't think smoke weed.
Yeah. I remember I grew up in Cloverdale, so it's small. Everybody knows everybody up there. And when the first dispensary opened up, it was so funny to watch people would park like down the street, and then you'd see them like walk in because they didn't want to have their car seen like right there, because people just know whose car it is. And it was just yeah. So it was just, it's funny to see that, but it, now you're seeing it, like you say, it's loosening up. People are more open about it. When people come to my house, I don't hide it. It's there. If you don't want to consume it, you don't have to. I'm okay with that too. I
had a party for my cousin's 32nd birthday this weekend at my house, and I had flowers from here, and in the flower bouquets, I had hemp stems.
I like
with the bud coming out of it, and for me, it's just another flower. It's just another plant.
Yeah.
And people were blown away at it, But then we had our margaritas, our beer and wine section on the ice, and I also had a cannabis section out there along with it, just as if it's another type of alcohol or another intoxicant. People loved it.
Yeah.
It was out there for everybody to have. You didn't go around and sneak. When we have our events out here, because of the licensure, of course, there's no alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
So we are front and center with cannabis.
Yeah.
And in the past, you had to sneak around and go outside and smoke the joint behind the dumpster.
Yeah.
Well, if people want alcohol, they can do that without their alcohol. They can sneak around and drink their booze and the outskirts of the party here. So it's kind of gone both ways. And, I'm not anti-alcohol for any means. I love alcohol. I drink alcohol. I combine the two.
Yeah, me too.
You have to be experienced to do that. For sure. Don't fall off, but I think there's room for both. And truthfully, I don't over-imbibe alcohol when I'm smoking cannabis.
Yeah. I'll be planning a wedding at some point in the near future, and I want to do like what we were just talking about that. Like
cannabis
I want to
bar.
have all that. Yeah. So it's there. So maybe we'll reach out when that time comes.
We would love that. We're working with a local super high end resort. $1,600 a night hotel.
Oh wow.
Thing. And they're offering that for their weddings too, and we're advising on that. We can't legally, put it forward.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like a weird scene because they have to be careful too. But it's more of like whoever's throwing the party can order their own stuff from a delivery system and bring it in and have a curated bar. But currently it's tough legally to kind of do both, but a lot of people want that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's a lot out there, and I've heard that the county's opening up a little bit on the idea of consumption lounges and things like that. So that's going to be a game changer, I think.
That'll be amazing, and that's where the real communication, the real education happens.
Yeah.
A tasting. I know I've seen Chronic Culture. Neil is doing dinners with cannabis pairings, and right now they're just starting out with that. There's some really cool things that are going to be happening down the road.
Yeah, and I know Chuck from F.A. Nino's.
No.
Yeah, he does his infused hot sauce, and he's had some ideas and done some things within the industry, but he would like to take it like where the average person could just come in. And he calls it like a blaze and graze, and it's really cool, to just see his food is great and have it infused or not. You don't have to, but it's a lot of fun, and the social aspect of it. He had games and all kinds of stuff. It was really cool to do.
That is neat. I mean, we have wine pairings with every fine dining meal right now, and I've exited some really nice restaurants, not really remembering the last part of the meal. Because you have your wine pairings, and it's in front of you, and you're drinking, and by the time you're drinking, you continue drinking, and by the end of the meal, you're blotzo, and
I could see that happening at a place like French Laundry, because that was like a 3 hour,
3-4 hours
3 or 4 hours later. I'm like, man, if we were drinking this whole time,
20 courses, and a wine with each course, you have to be careful, but that is part of the experience. It's a wonderful part of the experience. I would love to see that be have a cannabis aspect too, because I think that everybody knows that cannabis enhances food.
Yeah,
everybody's smoked a joint and eaten a bag of Cheetos or everybody knows it's the best peanut butter sandwich you've ever had, right? And so imagine like a talented chef putting out amazing food that you eat after you smoked. It'd just be next level.
That's what made it so great. The last event when I was out here was. I had like some edibles and things like that, and then the lunch was amazing. But you're right, it does elevate it a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're excited for the future here, and the hospitality aspect of cannabis. And we love the plant, and we're hoping that everybody understands what's going on in this industry right now, like what an extinction event is happening, and how many great people are losing everything that they once had because of the pricing war. Mm-hmm. And a race to the bottom is eventually going to hurt the consumer too.
Oh, for sure.
So you won't have as many choices.
Yeah.
So cheaper is not better always.
No, very rarely is it better.
Very rarely is it better. And if it is, somebody's getting taken advantage of along the way. Yeah. Whether it's the worker or the farmer, or there's something that bad to happen to get you great product at a cheap price. Yeah.
So before we go and see the rest of the farm, what do you see for the future? Like, what's coming up for Sonoma Hills going into like 2023?
So 2023, we have our beautiful dry barn that's curing our product correctly, and that's going to bring a lot more quality to the shelves. What we're excited about, first and foremost. Second is all the other exciting things. Like we've been building this place out for 2.5 years, and really it was 3 years of permitting before that. So 2.5 years of grinding. I mean, I put over 4 miles of pipe in the ground. We've built buildings and done all the infrastructure. We have backup generator. We have like all the things we need to do to consistently turn out great product. Next will be the greenhouse. So the pad's in, the PG&E upgrades up. That was 5 years in the making to get PG&E to bring out 3-phase power out here in the middle of nowhere. So all of these things are here, and now we will be getting the shell. It'll be a Dutch-style greenhouse, 2-story, completely climate controlled. And so in that, there'll be some true indoor, there'll be some mixed light, and then we'll have our outdoor living soil. And all 3 are going to be grown organically.
Nice.
And we are really excited to have the same strain grown across all 3 different genres of growing.
Okay.
By the same team, and we're hoping to let you see a side by side with 3 genres of growing, and then you can smoke the 3 and decide which you think is better.
I love that,
because there is that debate: indoor, outdoor, mixed. Everybody's all up in arms, and everybody's in their own camp.
Yeah.
And it'll be exciting to do a side-by-side tasting. So that's the next big thing for Sonoma Hills Farm.
I'm looking forward to that.
We're renovating the courtyard, what we're calling the courtyard, because as that building goes up, it'll outside the Century Barn here will be the courtyard. And can you imagine an event out here, completely surrounded by the THC buildings, and having a sight window into the 2-story greenhouse and watching the plants, gently sway in the breeze of the fans as you're having an event here. Yeah. That's really the future for us. So,
all right.
As well as expanding our food program, expanding the dry farming, and really kind of making the land sing and healing it at the same time. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
you guys are doing amazing work.
Thank you so much. I mean, we're grinding away at it, and hopefully we make it. And hopefully, hopefully the consumers who try our product will appreciate it.
I've never heard anybody come back and say they didn't like it, so you guys are doing the right things.
We do seem to have a lot of loyalty and repeat customers once you smoke it. Which makes me feel good. But as an ex-chef and knowing that you're only worth as much as your last plate. Yeah. You're always looking for that. That validation for every single. Every time, every jar. You're only as good as the last jar you opened. So. We're hoping to have consistent, great product for years to come.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to sit down with me.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we had a nice little lull in harvest today. Everything's going well. Weather cooperated. It dried out. So we're excited for this year.
Well, let's go do a tour.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.